Alright guys, hope you had a good weekend, doing well and you're keeping safe. I was actually writing a script for a different video, the Division Infinity or the Division 3 Infinity. So that's something that I wanted to create and will likely come out tomorrow. And we'll talk about the future of the Division franchise. But in the meantime, yesterday a current massive employee and ex-Division developer has sparked a pretty huge debate, not just within the Division community where I want to focus this video, but gaming in general and the relationship players have with the game devs. It's something that I wanted to discuss here because I think it really shows the ever-growing canyon between developers and players. Now here's the tweet I want to talk about and get your opinions on in the comments. It says, "I challenge anyone to show me an example of devs lying ever. Showing a feature in development that then has to change due to time, performance, design or other factors is not lying. The only alternative, if that's lying, is to stonewall and never show anything until ship day." Now that you've read that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below and I'll give you mine, because this is a particularly spicy and sensitive subject and I think it can apply to the current silence within the Division 2. So yeah, get to those comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get into it. First and foremost, and kind of a bit of a disclaimer before we get into this one, this video isn't a personal attack on the game developer who posted this, because actually we've had a good professional relationship surrounding the Division since the Division 2 dropped, and I'm not looking to put them on blast or anything, so I'm not going to be mentioning names, but I don't agree with their opinion here, and of course they are entitled to their own opinion, but I just think it's provably false, and that's what I want to get into. So let's start. Obviously, once this tweet went out, it was met with many responses from game developers and players who agreed with this statement, and then players who completely disagreed. And I'm on the field of disagreeing here wholeheartedly, just because I think there is evidence that this isn't true. If there's one thing this community won't do, and it's one of the best things about this community, is they're not quiet. And as expected, many Division players and content creators responded with their take to this tweet. This dev explains that in order to be considered a lie, there must be intent. Having a feature be advertised to the general public in marketing or whatever, and then be ripped from the game before launch isn't lying, but instead a failure to deliver. It's still very bad, but not a lie. So that's the reason why this developer made that statement, and they're obviously basing that statement on a technicality. And for the most part, I'd agree with this statement, because technically, in order to lie, there must be intent to deceive. Otherwise, it's an error, or in game development, it will be a failure to deliver. But, and this is a huge caveat here, it doesn't matter when it comes to marketing a game that consumers purchase. Ultimately, players, consumers, they're not going to care about that stuff. They're not going to care about a technicality. All they're going to see is, this is what you showed me and that's what I expect. Regardless of that, there is evidence that actually there have been lies, not just in the Division but other games as well. So it was exposed by the Division community in response to this tweet that at least one dev has lied at Massive about one of the Division 2's biggest failures, and that was the Dark Zone. And this actually goes back to a state of the game a long time ago. It feels like a lifetime ago. It was in the Division 2. A dev was responding to the request for more players in the Dark Zone. Now, in response, that developer said they tested having more than 12 players and felt that it ruined the player experience because too much was going on. They felt that 12 players was the right amount of players to avoid these issues, and this was on State of the Game. Well, another developer, Massive, responded to the Dark Zone player request on Twitter, separate to this State of the Game. It was either before or after the State of the Game, I can't remember, saying the real reason was because the console platforms could not render more than 12 players at a good frame rate because they are more visually detailed and customizable than the Division 1. So it wasn't a player experience issue, but actually a technical limitation. And this, to me, is a lie. There's no way the dev who said it was a player experience issue didn't know it was actually a technical limitation. So this is one example at least from the Division that we've had, something be said that's this particular way, and then someone else come and go, actually it's not, it's actually this. And to me, that is a lie. And there are many others within gaming that I can think of. One of the biggest ones is No Man's Sky. I was actually watching the Internet Historian's hour-long video on No Man's Sky today. But I've seen it loads of times, but I watched it today because it's one of my favourite videos. And if you watch that video, you're going to identify many lies by Sean Murray, the most famous being multiplayer. Now, when asked in an interview if you could meet another player in-game, Sean Murray said yes. Now, that was a lie, because at that time, even if their intent was to include multiplayer before launch, there wasn't actually multiplayer in the game. So when you're asked if you can meet players in-game, actually at that time, you couldn't. So that is a lie. It's not like the feature had been developed and then cut from the game. It hadn't been developed at all. And this applied to many things that Sean Murray said was going to be in the game, with no disclaimer at all, before he gave his answer, which just didn't make it to launch. Making a feature, showcasing it with a disclaimer, and then cutting it from the game is one thing, albeit still pretty crappy feeling as a player. But not making the feature, saying the feature is there, which is the lie, and then not having it ready for launch is another. Now imagine this for a second. You go into a car showroom and ask the sales rep if the car has a gold-plated wheel, and they say yes. You decide to purchase that car because of what that sales rep just said. 1 week later, you go to pick the car up and there's no gold wheel. When you ask the sales rep where the gold wheel is, they say, well, we intended to make the wheel but couldn't get it ready, so you can't have it. The sale of that car to me, regardless of a technicality, is a lie. They said the car has, which is the important part, a gold-plated wheel. Not that it didn't, but that they would make an attempt to make one for me. Saying something has something implies that it already exists. This is why when Sean Murray's response about multiplayer is a lie, because it didn't exist when he said yeah. I want to make a separate video discussing the catch-22 scenario of stonewalling or being silent about anything to do with a game until it actually launches versus releasing marketing material with intended features that don't make it. There's a poll currently ongoing on the community tab that I would highly recommend you take part in. This is a difficult video for me to make because, as I said at the start, the developer who made this statement is someone I have a good relationship with, a good communication with, and I highly respect. I just completely disagree with their take here, and I think that there are many examples within gaming where developers or people within marketing or whatever it is within that gaming sphere have said that something is coming or something is there and it's not actually going to make it. Because, and of course, that is the main difference. If you say that you can do this thing in game, but that thing doesn't actually exist in the game at that time of development, then you can't say that, because that is ultimately a lie. And I think that's where the major difference is. The Sean Murray thing, to me, is a lie. If you say you can play with someone in game, multiplayer, but actually that feature hasn't been created yet, you just shouldn't say it. And again, this is what I want to discuss in a different in a separate video, because this video will go on forever otherwise. And this is why Yannick and the guys over at Massive are not saying anything. And Yannick has said this before. The reason why they're being so silent is because they don't want to say, you know, we're gonna do this, that, and the other, if they don't make it to the game, because it raises expectations, and then when it doesn't happen, people get annoyed. The catch-22 part is obviously the fact that they're completely silent, and we're probably not going to hear anything now, guys, if I'm being honest, about any of the new content until literally a week out. Probably maybe even less, because I know that within game development, even features that have been developed and are ready to go can still be cut a couple of days out. So I don't expect to hear anything anytime soon. We got Gamescom, I believe it's tomorrow, or I believe it may even be Thursday. It's tomorrow, Thursday, that sort of time, where people are hoping for the Division 2 news and the Division Heartland news. Not going to happen. Honestly, if we hear something about any of these two, I will be very, very surprised. I'll be very happy, because that also means that the stuff they reveal is pretty concrete, and we're definitely going to be getting it, basically. I just don't expect to hear anything. But that's it, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this one. Drop your comments and your opinions in... Maybe that was wrong way around. Drop your opinions in the comments down below. I do expect some kind of split on this one. Even on the poll, I believe it's like 55-45 split in terms of stonewalling or showing us intended features. So I'm expecting a similar kind of thing in the comments down below. But it'll be interesting to see what you guys say. Until the next one, Epic out.